My name is Mark Hinkle. I am the co-founder of All Things OpenAI, now recently named to All Things AI Live. And I'm here with Sriram Raghavan, who is from IBM. He's the head of AI research, and he just gave a keynote on his vision for the future for AI. And so welcome. Thanks for making the trip to Durham, North Carolina today.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure to be here. It was a great atmosphere at the conference, and I enjoyed the opportunity to share our view on AI with the community here.
Your talk was interesting, is that artificial intelligence needs community intelligence. So for those folks that didn't get to hear it, why don't you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, great. I think the point of the talk was very simple, that a transformation of technology like AI that's set up to affect every industry, every profession, drive trillions of dollars of economic output, that isn't going to happen unless the core of the technology is out in the open, developed, shaped, informed, and manipulated by the community. And so that's why this was about AI meeting the community and the importance of open approaches to community innovation in AI. Yeah. That's basically the core of the talk. And I certainly was maybe preaching to the choir with this community here, but certainly was well received.
Yeah. So we have a big open source following, and I would like to say that it was carefully curated and planned, but it was very organic, that we had every single one of our speakers talked about open and community and having an ability to connect around this technology and for it to be accessible. You had a big announcement today during the keynote around that. Would you like to share that?
Yes, absolutely. So Mark, we were happy to announce at the event today that we're contributing 3 projects to the Linux Foundation, eventually with a view to that landing in the Linux Foundation AI and Data Foundation. And the 3 projects we're contributing are a project called Data Prep Kit, which is really around large-scale unstructured data processing, which is essential to make sense, to actually effectively build applications. You got to get your data ready. Data Prep Kit is something we actually built internally in IBM to help us deal with massive amounts of data to build our own models called Granite models. We're releasing that framework out there, and we really want to evolve it with the community to do data processing, cleaning, filtering, develop on a laptop, scale to the cloud seamlessly. So that's one project. The second one is actually a project called Docling, which when we released in the open organically has been amazingly well received. I think the project has, in a matter of 3 to 4 months, 24,000 stars, over 1,000 forks. Clearly we touched a raw nerve, because when you talk about unstructured data, a lot of the content you want to manipulate sits in complex, rich formats, in PDF documents, Excels, PPTs, etc. How do you turn them, convert them into things that an LLM can actually make sense of? So that's a project called Docling. That's the second one. And then finally, of course, and this happened in the event, this is the year of agents. So the third project we're contributing is actually a family of projects called B, named after the IBM B in the IBM logo. And the B project really is addressing, it's both a framework to build agents, but also a mechanism to orchestrate agents built using multiple frameworks and to bring them together. And we're also, as part of the project, developing in the open community a protocol called ACP, Agent Communication Protocol, that tries to address this interoperability issue with agents.
People have been talking about how someday even individual contributors are going to be HR managers of their agent workforce. So does B help with that?
Yes, absolutely. So look, today B is targeting developers today to help you build agents, but one key element of B is also these composable visual interfaces, where as we start to understand the technology better, we certainly see every persona being able to instantiate an agent, and you don't have to know programming to create an agent. You teach the agent, you give it the tools that you would use today, give it the knowledge that you want, and it actually does useful things for you. And it goes back to the previous discussion. That kind of scalable everyday use isn't going to happen if the underlying platforms aren't built on open technologies, which is why our contributions today are towards that end.
Yeah. And so with all these agents, the big question is, what is the intelligence that powers these agents? everyone has seen the DeepSeek news. It's been in the news cycle way too much. I'm propagating the craziness that has been there, but I think it brings to light is how are we going to power the agents? Is it going to be, ironically, that open company that isn't so open? Is it going to be someone else? Like, what's that look like?
No, so I think it's very clear to us, and I think the journey is already happening, that you're going to have lots of fit-for-purpose small LLMs that eventually going to let you do. We have seen now tasks that we thought, even as a community 2 years ago, needed a 500 billion parameter model, that today, 3 billion, 2 billion parameters model are doing that very, very well. So the pace of innovation in AI has been so high that it's clear that the path is towards fit-for-purpose, small, effective LLMs. So I think the agents of the future are actually going to be built very much like the Unix philosophy. You're going to have fit-for-purpose models that are good at dealing with a certain modality, dealing with a certain set of tasks. And you're going to orchestrate them together to get useful work done. No different from, you and I programmers, we know we stitch little Unix tools together to get something done. That's what's going to happen. And I think the world is getting there with our family of Granite models that IBM releases in the open with the Apache 2 license. We have seen the ability to do things with 1 billion, 2 billion, 3 billion, even models that can run on CPUs. And I think that's the path to real democratization.
So I think that we have the tendency to always think bigger is better, but when it comes to these models, I think small is the new big.
Absolutely.
Right?
And the fun part is that these small models aren't as if they are not trained on large amounts of data. These models today, a billion parameter model could still be, and our models take 10 trillion tokens. They're really, really smart. It's just that we have figured out how to do it in a billion parameters when 2 years back we thought you needed 100 times as much. And that's just the rate of pace of progress in AI, which is, I think, exciting for you and exciting for me.
Yeah, so I was following all the big models for quite some time, but I knew theoretically there would be small models, and Hugging Face is the GitHub of AI, right? With all these models on, but it's so much to pick on. And then I met the head of platform engineering, IBM Watson, and we started talking about Granite.
Right.
And I was fascinated by the fact that there is a platform, and we're talking about open source, we're at opensource.com, that is out there that really is open source. There's a lot of things that are open-ish. The open source definition does not quite work for AI because you may have different hardware, but the spirit is how can you provide software in a way that's easy to replicate and co-develop. And so that involves a legitimate open source license, a real open source license.
Right.
There's some licenses that are open-ish, but IBM chose the Apache 2, which is a OSI approved license. The other thing is the configuration or the parameters are, you share all the parameters, so all the weights and the biases so that you can get as close as possible. And then finally, this is where I think the uniqueness comes in, is it is really hard when you train on that much data to share the data. I don't know how many, petabytes of data you trained on, but you did a software bill of materials, which a lot of these openish models, DeepSeek has been in the news. We know that it was trained in China and they have certain limitations in the data they have and certain biases in their data, so it's hard to know where that came from. But we know is that right? We know where your models came from.
Absolutely. I think, let me just reiterate what you were saying, Mark. So one is, like I said, there's lots of places to do innovation in AI. We didn't think we needed to innovate in the license just to start with. You're right, AI is a little bit different. As a community, we're going to evolve this, but we wanted to start with a well-understood, mature license. So we released our model with Apache 2 license, as you said. On the hardware front, you're right that again, today, there is so much diversity in hardware still, and the stacks are evolving. But our point here is that we want to release models with different sizes that allow developers to now work with our models, whatever is the infrastructure they can work with. Right? So we have models, our time series models can run on a CPU. We have models that can run sub-$1 billion. We have tiny MOE models that you can experiment with Granite. And then go all the way to 8 billion, 10 billion parameter models. So today our answer to hardware diversities will give you choice so you can work with our models, whatever you have, but at least get you started. And the third comment on transparency is very fundamental to us. We are very transparent in the data sets we use. We are transparent even in the mixing ratios. We said we take 20% of that with 10% of the other data set. And most recently, we even released a data set called NeisWeb. Neis pronounced G-N-E-I-S-S, sticking with the rock theme, right? Granite rock with NeisWeb, where we actually fully explain the processing that we do on data. Now, we're not expecting every developer out there to necessarily have the infrastructure to replete it. But we are being very transparent in this is how we clean the data, this is how we throw it out, this is how we dedupe it. The recipe is out there. It's part of a project that we announced. We released Data Prep Kit. You can literally take that recipe, apply it to your own data set, and you're going to get all the benefits of what we do. You may be doing it at much smaller scale, but that's what I mean by being very open in what we do. And like you said, we think it's important that the model have a software bill of materials, and today, a key element of the software bill of material for the model is data sets. So we don't believe it makes sense to release models without being transparent about what data sets we are using.
So this is probably the very beginning. I've noticed there's a lot of open source AI projects, but there's not a lot of development outside of the community. So when you said Docling, for example, has 24,000 stars in GitHub, 1,000 forks, that is sort of a new thing in AI. I mean, I haven't seen large developer communities. So if you are a developer and you want to get involved, how should they do that?
Absolutely. Look, I think, let's start with Docling. Docling lets you address, like I said, this document conversion problem. But we know that there are many formats that we don't support. There's a bunch that we have supported. Would love for the community to help us improve it. There are language support pieces. I'm sure we do very well on the language that we have had to build in IBM. We certainly think that's an amazing for the community all over the world to say, let me improve Docling support when it processes documents in a certain language. Then there is also the size piece. We have again made Docling very pluggable. So there is a model that lets you figure out how to do reading order in complex documents. There's a model that lets you get better at chart understanding. There's a model that lets you get better at understanding figures. Each one of them can be improved. So by making it very modular, we're encouraging the community to improve every little part of Docling because they're all going to accumulate and you're able to stitch pipelines together. And the last piece of Docling is, look, if unstructured data is going to be so fundamental to AI, which we think it is going to be, I think there is the notion of what is the structured way to represent processed data in a standard way that an LLM can make sense of. And I think that's the kind of thing that the community should co-evolve. We have a starting thing there called Docling document. That's a starting point. Would love for the community to come, comment on it, improve the specification, so we can all have a common way in which we can take rich documents, represent it, give it to LLMs, and then build interesting agents with on top of those LLMs. So just one example of what we would love for the community to do with Docling.
Well, that's great. Well, this has been amazing. Congratulations to you and the Linux Foundation. I used to work for them. I was a member for many years of providing a good governance and a great home for these projects. And I enjoyed our conversation, and thanks for being at All Things AI. I've dropped the open, but we're still open.
Thank you, Mark. It's been a pleasure to be here.